My daughter and my husband are running around here somewhere, and my daughter Savannah's 31, and I would have loved to have had an LGS foundation when she first started having seizures and when she was ultimately diagnosed with LGS. So it really warms my heart and means more to me than you guys can know that you guys are all here and you have this foundation. You'll often hear me say this: we don't have cures, we don't have an easy road ahead, but gosh darn it, we have each other. And in my 31 years of doing this, there's a lot that I hope that I can teach you, just the way people like Karen has taught me, because she has a son who's older, and that's the way it works here. So oftentimes you're going to get information from other families that in ways that you're not going to get from your doctor or from the health community. So I'm so glad you're here. This morning, we have the real privilege of hearing from Julie Lazara. She is a professor of psychology, and I heard her story, which I'm going to warn you, get the tissue ready, a few months ago. She works with the Land and Legacy Foundation, and I think, when I think about Julie, she's very passionate about inclusion of people like our loved ones. And, my daughter having, been kicked out of Special Olympics church and family Christmas, inclusion is really important. A lot of the world just doesn't understand our loved ones with LGS. And she's also really passionate about mental health, and her experiences with her son Landon have really taken what she has studied professionally to a whole new level. And she's going to share her story about Landon and her journey with us this morning. So, Julie, I would love to bring you up, and we can't wait to hear from you. Thank you.
Good morning. It's working. So nice to be here, and I'm so thankful that the LGS community asked me to come speak and tell my story. So just wanted to start with this. One day you will be brave, open your heart, and share how you survived your loss, and your story will become someone else's survival guide. So hopefully, I know Landon is with me right now and will help me share his story and my story. So it all begins with Landon. Here he is in all his glory. He was born on May 9th, 2017. And I had a normal pregnancy. I had a normal birth. He was 7.5 pounds with a nice set of hair, and all was well. Right, so I thought, dun, 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 spoiler alert, things changed. But so here is Landon, cute as a button. Still, things are going well. You can see my husband here and Landon's big sister, Callie. And we were out at a friend's and doing all the normal things. Of course, having a newborn is hard, but just the normal newborn stuff. So that was our story at first. And then, of course, we all have the before and then the after. He had his first seizure, and I'll always remember the day that I was by myself at home with him, sitting on the couch and holding him while he slept, and something happened. And I wasn't quite sure what it was, but having a child before, I thought, this isn't the normal thing. And I called my husband and I said, I think he had a seizure, even though I didn't know what a seizure was besides seeing it in the movies. And called the pediatrician. Of course, they said, you need to go into the hospital. We're local here in Phoenix, so we went to Phoenix Children's Hospital. And then I started second guessing myself. Maybe it wasn't a seizure. I don't know. Maybe it was just a newborn thing. Went there. Of course, they did the EEG, so you can see there with the famous head wrap. And if you're not having a seizure at the time, the EEG is not going to show anything, so there wasn't much with that. But then they did the MRI. And of course, that's scary because here I have a 4-month-old and they're going to put him under anesthesia. And of course, that wasn't the first time. It was the first time, but many more times this was going to happen when he'd have to be under anesthesia. But then I remember the doctors coming in and they said, we think you should sit down. And nobody wants to hear that. It's like, no, I'm not going to sit down, because if I don't sit down, then maybe you're not going to tell me this terrible thing. And they said, we found something in his brain and it's called focal cortical dysplasia. And this is what's causing his seizures. But don't worry, because we're going to give you Keppra, and we're going to send you home, and you might be eligible for surgery later. So everything's okay. Just go home, and all is good. Well, this may seem familiar to you all. You start, Excel becomes your friend, or whatever way that you're writing down, tracking your seizures, because they ask you all these questions. Well, what was he doing before? What was he doing after? Was he looking up, left, right, down? What did he have to eat? And you're like, I don't know. You can't remember all of these things because you're in the moment with your child, making sure that they're okay. So you start writing it down. It kind of becomes a science project in a way where you're saying, this is the medication. You're helping the doctor. You're being a doctor's assistant. And I know there's some new apps and things out there that helps you with tracking that's maybe works better than Excel. And so then that led to, of course, as you saw, the seizures kept on happening. Like we all know, you think, and you hear a story, someone's best friend, oh, they used to have seizures and they grew out of it. And you'll hear that. Or, oh, they had the febrile seizure and it was okay. So you think like, oh, yeah, that's fine. People can live with epilepsy. Maybe they can't drive, but that's all right. But then the seizures weren't going away, and they're trying more medications, and they're changing the doses, and they're adding. And I'm thinking, they didn't tell me this that first day at the hospital. They didn't say the first medication might not work, or that they might be taking 2, 3, 4 medications. And they didn't say, oh, they might have these other type of seizures that look different. And one of them is called infantile spasms. So I'm sure how many of you are familiar with infantile? So yes, we hate that. And I remember doing my research thinking, at least he doesn't have infantile spasms. Well, of course, when I explained the seizure type, and at first you get assigned to a doctor that was not, I think it was a very new doctor that was not an epileptologist, didn't really have all of the information, but when I described it, she said, I need to go get the higher up. I need to go get my boss. And then once again, your stomach drops. This isn't good. I don't want your higher up to come here. I don't want the specialist. But going into, so Landon's first Thanksgiving, and you can see there's not a very good picture. Sorry, my husband's not here to see this, that I put that picture of him up. But you know how it is in the hospital. You are not getting much sleep. There's the beeps, there's the sounds, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I had to bring him a Thanksgiving dinner because we're taking turns. You all probably know how this is. And it was in that hospital stay that we figured out that he indeed had infantile spasms. So then that starts this whole new other journey of what we would like to say, well, oh, good, okay, we caught it early. At least we caught it early. Now we're gonna get rid of these infantile spasms. And I wish we could fast forward to the good part and say, yay, it's cured and it was done. But no, that didn't happen. And anyone on the street that saw Landon like this just thought like, you feed that baby a lot. But I think you all know this face, the moon face from having steroids, that you see the pictures. And at the time I was like, oh, he's not that chubby. Then looking back at the pictures, it's like, whoa, their face. But then you kind of know, you see it with other kids that they're probably going through a steroid treatment. But look at how happy he is. He was a trooper, just taking his medication, giving it to him in the syringes, doing everything that he needed to do, and working so hard just to do, what other kids take for granted. And I want to share this quote with you. Some of you may have seen it before. And I think this sums up how we get to feel in this journey. You're now in a secret world. You'll see things you never imagined: ignorance, rudeness, and discrimination. But you'll also witness so many everyday miracles, and you'll know it. You won't think a milestone is just a milestone. You'll know it's a miracle and be present in that moment. You'll treasure things most wouldn't think twice about. You'll become an advocate, an educator, a specialist, and a therapist. But most of all, you'll be a mom to the most wonderful child. And I think only we really understand how special it is to have a child like ours. And some people may look at us and say, oh, look at how hard their life is, but they don't know. They don't know how special our life is and the gifts that our children really are. Saying all of that, it still is really hard, right? It's really, really, really hard. And nobody prepares you for this because people are like, oh, parenting is hard. And then you want to be like, really? Like, step into my life. And it's much more different because, all the appointments and the therapists and the hospital stays and OT, PT, speech, caregivers, and it's a lot on top of the normal thing. And I remember as well being at the pediatrician appointment, and I had my daughter first, was 5 years older, so kind of went through maybe the more typical developmental, and they hand you that sheet of paper that says, check off the milestones that your child has accomplished, and you want to just crumple up that paper and throw it back at them because your child doesn't meet those milestones and you feel like I'm a failure as a parent because that's what people ask you. And you'd say, oh, my son is 1, my son is 2. Oh, he must be running around. He must be. And it's like, and you want to say, no, actually, he's not. And they don't mean anything bad. That's just what people say. But we have to kind of tell them. I think we have to tell our story so people know that there's a variety. There's a variety of milestones, and not every kid is the same. So you can see, Lando, this is out in the Arizona sun there. I don't know, my husband doesn't have shoes on, which is a little crazy, but Landon walking in his gait trainer outside of our house. And I thought about too, what are the neighbors going to think when we have this child in a gait trainer walking around? But, we're bringing awareness in that way too. So this leads me to the science-y part of the talk, but I'm going to try not to get too science-y. This isn't my research, but I summarized this research because I really resonated with this study, and it came out in 2023. I'll have a QR code at the end if you'd like to read the full story, but I think this is important to know that you are a parent, but you're also a caregiver, and that is hard. It's really hard to navigate both. And like that quote, you're putting on a lot of different hats, more than other people. And you didn't necessarily sign up for this job. You do it. And people might say, I don't know how you do it. And you do it because it's your child and you have to, and you learn what to do. So this study looked at parents with drug-resistant epilepsy, which I think is important because we're a whole different population than just, I want to call regular epilepsy or treatable epilepsy. We're in this other category here. So the stress is much higher because you're always thinking, you don't even want it. When people say, and they mean well, they'll say, oh, how is he doing? When was his last seizure? And you want to say, well, I don't want to jinx it. You don't even want to say, well, he hasn't had one in 6 weeks, because then you have to knock on wood, because at any time they can have one again. And we're always worried and wondering and trying to look out for them even more than other typical children. So you may see yourself in one of these 3 categories here. This is what the study found, that these groups emerge. So there's the steady navigators. This is the one that maybe hopefully you're in. But you show a lot of resilience, and maybe because we're here at the conference, more of us might be in this category, and there might be a lot more people at home that are struggling that couldn't even get the strength to come to this for various reasons. But they are strong, they have minimal symptoms of depression, anxiety, and they have a strong family support system. Then the next column, you'll see the overcomers. So they have improvement over time. They start with some mild symptoms of anxiety and depression. They have a rocky path, but reach emotional stability over time, and they have moderately strong family support. And then the last one is strugglers. They face more of a challenging road. They start with moderate levels of depression and anxiety. They may find some improvement, but they have limited family support. So if you were my class, I would ask you, what do you notice between the columns? And you would hopefully, maybe one good student would say, the support system at the bottom. And when we say family, we can define family in a lot of different ways. Doesn't necessarily have to be your biological family. And I'm sure you all learned through your experience who your real friends and your real family are, because some people are just like, I can't deal with this. And they disappear. And you're like, okay, I didn't like you that much anyway. People show their true colors. So you find out who your real family is. And people show up that you didn't expect. And sometimes your OT, your PT, my Christmas card list got so long. I'm like, well, there's this doctor, this nurse. We were baking cookies. My husband, well, he's the baker in the family. He had to bake so many cookies because there was so much support for Landon, which is really an amazing thing. And they all deserve cookies, gosh darn it. So it's important to find that support if you can. And it may not be biological, but that's okay. And you all know that our lives are different than most of our regular friends, but I get you. We have, people share on social media, and this would always tear at my heart too of, oh, here's what my kid is doing, and they're playing baseball, and your update is, look at us in the hospital. Here's our hospital selfie, making various faces. We're in Texas, but not for fun. We're here because we're at a second opinion or a third opinion to try to find some other way. You want to make sure that you're doing the right thing for your kids. And even though you love your doctors, you're just like, well, I need to hear from another person. So you travel, you do everything, you do anything for your kid. So this leads me to here is Landon here. And on Sunday, you all are going to be going to Butterfly Wonderland. This is a picture of Landon at Butterfly Wonderland. And he really liked it there, but he actually liked the koi pond more. You never know what your kids will end up liking. He liked the koi pond more than the butterflies, because you'll see them there. They're jumping out and moving their mouth. But it was a special place for us to get to go. But my message to you is to try to breathe in the amazing, because life is very fragile. And I think that we know that. And even more so with my experience, I know it. And we are all mortal. Whether or not we are more at risk or not, we're all mortal. And we're here for a certain amount of time. Let's do what we can with that time. So when you go to Butterfly Wonderland, Landon has a butterfly there. Some of his caregivers and OT and PT, they surprised us. We went there and they were like, look up. And we're like, what? And we looked up and they had this butterfly for him. So if you're there, I can point out where his butterfly is. But it's all above when you first walk in, a lot of memorial butterflies. So Landon passed away 2 years ago, and he was 5. My call to action for you at this conference is to find your tribe, whatever that means. So that family that I was talking about before, if you can find, and you'll see a bunch of us right there in our purple, our favorite color, with bubbles, because Landon loved bubbles. It makes a difference to have people around you that really support you.